December 26, 1944, 6:47 a.m. Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams stood half-exposed in the turret of his Sherman tank on a frozen hillside in southeastern Belgium. He stared north toward Bastogne. Snow had been falling since midnight. The temperature was 18 degrees below zero. The wind sliced through his tanker's jacket as if it didn't exist. His fingers were so numb he could barely feel the binoculars pressed against his face. Bastogne was just 5 miles away. Inside the town, 10,000 American paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division were completely surrounded. They were running out of ammunition, running out of food, running out of time. For 8 days, German forces had encircled them. The Germans demanded their surrender. The American response came from Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe. It was only one word: nuts. That word raced through Allied lines like electricity. It became legend overnight. It gave hope to soldiers who desperately needed something to believe in during the darkest winter of the war. But hope couldn't stop artillery shells. Hope couldn't feed starving men. Hope couldn't replace ammunition that was disappearing hour by hour. Now, hope wasn't enough. Abrams had to reach them. His 37th Tank Battalion had been fighting nonstop for 5 brutal days through snow, fog, and determined German resistance. In all that time, they had advanced only 22 miles. Now, just 5 miles remained. 5 miles of German paratroopers. 5 miles of anti-tank guns. 5 miles of minefields and ice-covered roads. 5 miles that might as well have been 1,000. Abrams was 30 years old. He had commanded the 37th Tank Battalion for over a year, and in that time, he had turned it into a weapon the German army had learned to fear. His men called him Colonel Abe. They followed him because they trusted him. They trusted him because he had never failed them. The Germans had their own name for his unit. They called it the Division That Never Stops. The 4th Armored Division had entered combat in France just 5 months earlier. Since then, they had achieved something that bordered on the impossible. They had killed an estimated 13,600 German soldiers. They had wounded over 30,000 more. They had captured more than 90,000 prisoners of war. And across all that, fighting across all those months, official U.S. Army records show something extraordinary. Only one man from the entire division remained in enemy captivity at the end of the war. One out of nearly 11,000 soldiers, fighting an enemy that had captured hundreds of thousands of Allied troops. The numbers defied logic. They defied statistics, but they were real. And it all began with how the division was built. The 4th Armored Division was activated on April 15, 1941, at Pine Camp in upstate New York, under Brigadier General Henry W. Baird. Its initial corps consisted of 3,800 veterans from the 1st Armored Division. The rest were draftees, farm boys from Pennsylvania, factory workers from New Jersey, college students from Massachusetts, pulled from civilian life months before Pearl Harbor. They knew nothing about tanks, nothing about armored warfare. They were raw material. Then came John Shirley Wood. Wood was born in 1888 in Monticello, Arkansas. His father served on the Arkansas Supreme Court. Wood graduated from the University of Arkansas in just 3 years, earning a degree in chemistry before entering West Point. He graduated in 1912. He fought in World War I. He studied armored doctrine in Paris. He learned directly from the French pioneers of mechanized warfare. By the time he took command of the 4th Armored Division in May 1942, Wood was 54 years old, ancient by armored warfare standards. But Wood understood something many younger commanders did not. Tanks don't win battles. Men do. Tanks were only tools. What mattered was whether the men using them could think faster than the enemy. Wood demanded time, while most divisions trained for 6 months, some for less. Wood insisted on 2 full years of preparation. And he got it. At Pine Camp, New York winters froze men to their vehicles. At Camp Forest, Tennessee, tankers learned to fight in forests and rolling hills. At Camp Ibis in the California desert, temperatures reached 120 degrees, engines choked with sand, and men collapsed from heat exhaustion. Wood called it perfect training. He pushed his soldiers beyond what they thought was possible. Maintenance in brutal heat followed immediately by mock assaults. Night maneuvers guided only by compass. Ambushes without warning. Security failures punished relentlessly. In Louisiana's swamps, during Third Army maneuvers, he forced march until feet bled, then ordered more marching. Exercises ran 48 hours without sleep. Wood recreated German tactics, German weapons, German thinking. Veterans later said nothing. In France surprised them, because they had already faced it in training. Wood obsessed over German doctrine. He read captured manuals, interviewed officers who had observed German campaigns, studied how panzer divisions coordinated attacks, exploited breakthroughs, and maintained momentum. Then he trained his men to do it better. His answer was combined arms warfare. Tanks alone were vulnerable. Infantry alone was slow. Artillery alone couldn't hold ground. But together tanks, infantry, and artillery supporting each other, covering each other's weaknesses, they became unstoppable. He organized the division into combat commands, self-contained forces, capable of independent action or concentrated assault. The commanders who emerged, men like Holmes Bager and Bruce Clark, became some of the finest officers in the U.S. Army. And when the moment came, when Bastogne was surrounded, when 5 frozen miles stood between hope and annihilation, that training would decide everything.